No, they don't know what a goose is.
Rio or Wizzo?
Okay, well, you explain that. Anyway, Major Mike Pederson, Naval Academy graduate.
Well, good afternoon to what we call now Pin City instead of Dunk City. And I was talking to Jeff Walensky out in the hallway. I just hate it when a plan finally comes together. I think it was July. Where are you at, Jeff? Here you are. July when we set up the first meeting, and here we are. So amazing. First of all, priorities, and I have learned from my past coaches in the past. And priorities, I'd like to thank my wife. Elsa, please stand up real quick. Understanding, and like Coach Miller was talking about, why we coaches spend time on events such as this, and it is the fact that wrestlers are just special people, and she understands the sport of wrestling. She's in the stands all the time, Mariner High School, even at JV matches. I mean, she was gone Fridays at JV tournament. She's like ready to go. It's like, you don't have to go. Yes, I have to go. So thank you very much. She understands why we're passionate about this sport. And she gets it. So for that, I'm very thankful and very fortunate to have a wife like that. Additionally, two of our children, I don't want to drag this on too long, but I'm going to work into an introduction here of a very special person that's in this room, and you guys know who I'm talking about, but I want to build up to this introduction, Dom. Additionally, two of our children are here, and they both graduated from this school, FGCU, and when they were going here, I didn't get a chance to come here very often at FGCU. And it kind of took this wrestling booster club to kind of get me to visit here a little bit more often other than their graduation. So I know they love it, that Dad knows how to find the Cohen Center. I'm sure they were like very happy. But Michael wrestled for Mariner High School a few years ago, and he's the reason why I got pulled back into the sport. I wrestled in junior high school, 1 year at college, got burned out cutting weight and studying, and I switched to boxing. But my heart really was in the sport of wrestling, and it took my son going to Mariner High School, and Coach Phillips, please raise your hand, head coach at Mariner High School, he grabbed my son out of the hallway and said, you look pretty tough, you want to come wrestle? So I started picking my son up from wrestling practice a little bit earlier, and next thing I knew, I was hooked back into the sport. So Coach Phillips, his wife Ellen, I've been very honored to be assistant coach for him for 10 years. The reason I still coach is because of the man that Coach Phillips is. They have a couple of wonderful children, but one of which I want to mention because he epitomizes what wrestling teaches us. And their son Eric, who I tried to talk into the Naval Academy and ended up going to the dark side to West Point, had the values that we learned from wrestling, and a fairly recent wounded veteran from Afghanistan. Went through some tough times there. One of the toughest phone calls I ever got was from Coach Phillips. At that point, it was Dad Phillips of former wrestler Eric. Informed me that he had been hit by an IED and was severely wounded. They struggled through those issues, and I think the reason Eric's continuing on with his life and doing so well is what he learned from wrestling and from the parents right here. Also wanted to thank my sister Sharon for driving over here from the South Miami area, and our friend Corey. Learned a lot from my sister and people like Corey that volunteer their service to the community, both past presidents of the Homestead Kiwanis. And the reason I also want to mention was one thing about my sister was I only heard two people when I was wrestling. I heard my coach and I heard my sister. And she was usually yelling at the ref. And I didn't want to, the ref wasn't getting too mad at me because my sister's yelling at her. But about 2.5 years ago, they needed to do a Good Friday prayer breakfast over at Homestead through the Kiwanis program. And she called me up and said, you think Dom might come over and fly in from Colorado and speak for us at a Good Friday prayer breakfast? And I hesitated for a second. I said, I know he's a wrestler at heart, and we have a hard time saying no. And I said, let me call him. And he didn't even hesitate. And it was a Good Friday prayer breakfast at Kiwanis. About 500 people in attendance that day. Dom got up there and gave the most incredible speech I've ever heard, and people had tears in their audience. I don't know if I can't promise that today, but I know when Dom gets up here, very humble hero and very inspirational. So the reason I bring that up is it tied into when Jeff Walensky called me up, and again, wrestlers can't say no, and you want to go to this Booster Club meeting, and we have some ideas, we need a fundraiser, etc., and gears started turning in the same meeting. We said we needed a speaker, and I kind of went, think I have the perfect speaker for wrestling and bringing people to listen to somebody like Dom. And we called up Dom again, and he didn't even hesitate. He looked at his calendar, and we picked a date and made it happen. So fast forward, here we are. So wrestling is more than a sport. We've heard a lot about from Coach Milkovich. It is a way of life. It's often been said that you won't make a living from wrestling, but you will learn to live from wrestling. I'm very honored to introduce Dom today. He is a wrestler at heart. That's why he didn't even hesitate to come to this event. He learned to live from wrestling. He took the lessons learned from wrestling and applied them to his personal and professional life. He is a perfect ambassador for our sport of wrestling, and it was quite fitting that he was recently inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame under the category of Outstanding American. It was just a perfect fit. Now, Dom wrestled a year behind me in high school over in Miami at Miami Palmetto High School when we were state champs in '74. I was a senior and Dom was a junior that year. We both somehow managed to make it in the Naval Academy. I know Dom had the better grades, and that was a no-brainer, but we both got in the Naval Academy at the same time. I had to take a year detour to get to the prep school one year. Dom caught up to me, and we were in the same class at the Naval Academy. That's where I got burned out trying to study and cut weight, and I switched to boxing. Dom, being the smarter, was able to hack it out, and he wrestled all 4 years at the Division I level for the U.S. Naval Academy, and did extremely well. As a high school wrestler, Dom wrestled at 141 pounds his senior year, probably cutting down from who knows where. He was a district champ. He was the GMAC champ, Greater Miami Athletic Conference, which is kind of like the LCAC over here on this side. And he was a state qualifier senior year. At the Naval Academy, Dom wrestled all 4 years at the tough D1 level. He placed 6th at 177 pounds in the NCAA Easterns tournament. On your tables, there's a bunch of stuff there, but if you wade through it, there's a picture that was taken of Dom during a high school pre-dual match lineup. We've all that wrestled have been in those big dual matches where you line up on the mat, staring at your opponents across. And if you take a look at that picture and stare at the young lad on the left, that's Dom Gorie. I mean, those of us that have wrestled know the feeling. You prepared as hard as you can. You've sacrificed. You've made tough decisions. The butterflies are there, but they're good butterflies. Coach Milkovich said this to me not that long ago, and it really made an impact, because we were talking about this one time, and he said, all good thoroughbreds have that same feeling. If you look at Dom's face there, and then fast forward a couple of years, and think about this astronaut, not laying on his back on a map, but laying on his back in a space shuttle, and having that same feeling of the butterflies. It's just a great transition there. Wrestling coaches all know that each student athlete in their practice room is unique and special in their own way. We've got a variety of kids in the practice rooms. And coaches, we tell our wrestlers things such as the sky is the limit, reach for the stars, and apparently Dom Gorie in high school was listening to those words way too seriously. But after our graduation from the Naval Academy in '79, Dom and I went slightly different paths. I went Marine Air, and Dom went with Navy Air. He had his dreams set on becoming an astronaut, and after earning his wings of gold, Dom flew several years in the A-7 Corsair attack jet off of Navy aircraft carriers. He eventually transitioned to the newer FA-18 Hornet, and during Operation Desert Storm in '91, Dom flew Hornets off of the USS Roosevelt. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. We had a lot of good folks that did a lot of good flying in those days. But to get a DFC, you had to do something very, very special. And Dom got it for valor, leading a very large multi-plane mission in the early stages of the war. Those that watch CNN and watch those highlights, Dom was at the receiving end of a lot of that AAA out there. Eventually flew 38 combat missions during Desert Storm. Throughout Captain Gorie's naval career, he has logged more than 7,000 flight hours in more than 35 different aircraft, and he has made more than 600 aircraft carrier landings. Never giving up on his early dream to become a NASA astronaut, Dom was finally accepted into the space program in 1994. Captain Gorie has flown on 4 space shuttle missions, twice as a pilot, twice as mission commander. And to better put this in perspective, there have only been 9 astronauts in U.S. history that have flown on 4 or more missions. Most of those are the mission specialists. It's very, very rare for somebody that has the pilot wings, be a pilot and a mission commander, to have flown on 4 or more missions. So you are in the midst of somebody that is in a very, very, very unique category. Dom's first space flight was in 1998 as the pilot of Shuttle Discovery. That 10-day mission was the final docking mission with the Russian Mir space station. His second space flight was 2 years later as pilot of Shuttle Endeavour, and that's the one that he's going to be very familiar with, flying it twice more after that. That 11-day mission had a very diverse international crew. Their mission was to use the shuttle's radar topography equipment to map more than 47 million miles of the Earth's land surface. So when you go to Google Earth, thank Dom for being the pilot of that shuttle that logged all those radar mapping. Dom's third mission was the first shuttle launch after the terrorist attacks of 9/11. Think back to that time frame. He was once again on board the Endeavour, but he was the mission commander this time, not just the pilot. He was the head honcho in charge, and this was less than 3 months after 9/11. And so under very heavy security, if you think back to that launch, with the hopes and prayers of millions of Americans and people throughout the world, he commanded that 12-day mission to the International Space Station, and they swapped out the station's crew and delivered 3 tons of equipment and supplies. Dom's fourth and final mission was in 2008, not that long ago. And he was once again as the mission commander of the now very familiar Shuttle Endeavour. This last mission that Dom was on was a spectacular night launch and a night landing, and it lasted 15 days and delivered Japanese and Canadian modules to the International Space Station. Again, it landed at night coming back, so it was amazing to watch. One of Captain Gorie's more somber and important missions with NASA had nothing to do with being in space. In February of 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia broke up upon re-entry over Texas and Louisiana. Dom was handpicked by NASA to be the senior astronaut in charge of the massive search and recovery of debris and evidence from that tragedy. So I'm certain that he will tell you that of all his military and NASA missions, that was the toughest of all. Besides being a humble hero, Dom is a religious and spiritual man. He has a personal Bible that he carried with him on all 4 missions, and during the Kiwanis prayer breakfast, he referred to that quite often. Very, very emotional. He's been married to his wife Wendy for over 30 years, and they have 2 amazing and talented children. His wife Wendy is also a Naval Academy grad, and she was a competitive swimmer at the highest levels. I think she almost made the Olympics at one time as a competitive swimmer. Dom and Wendy have been building their dream home for the past almost 3 years out in Colorado, up in the mountains. So I think Dom likes to be close to space, so he picked Colorado to get up there at the couple 1,000-foot level. And if he shows you your hands, he's been actually, no kidding, building his own house out there. The folks at the local Home Depot, close to where he's building the house, they don't refer to him as Dom, the former astronaut. They refer to him as that guy that keeps coming in there and buying a ton of stuff. Their daughter, Kimmy, is a graduate of Vanderbilt University, and she has her master's degree in autism research. Their son, Andrew, is also a recent Naval Academy grad. Andrew talked to me one time. He said, I said, how did you choose this career path? And when I mentioned it, you guys don't understand. He said, well, my dad's a 4-time astronaut, so I had to pick something that was a little bit different. So their son, Andrew, has decided to become a Navy SEAL, an officer of Navy SEALs, and he is a couple months away from receiving his actual official training as a Navy SEAL. So, sure, those of you guys know the training that those guys go through. It's just absolutely incredible. And he rode crew at the Naval Academy. Now, again, I realize this might be approaching a little bit long. You guys are waiting for the true speaker to come up here, Dom. But again, I want to give this a proper introduction so you guys understand who you're going to have up here in a couple seconds. But parents and coaches are constantly telling their children and student athletes to surround themselves with good, like-minded people. Because of wrestling, I've been honored to know Dom for over 40 years. Again, in high school, he was 1 year behind me, and a few weight classes above me, probably not anymore. But the practice room was always very crowded, and so we bumped into each other quite often during practice. And I can tell you, Dom's work ethic and his sportsmanship on and off the mat were truly inspirational. After I left high school for the Naval Academy, Dom was a senior. My brother, who was sitting next to Dom, was a year behind Dom. And my brother Kevin was emerging as a star wrestler. And those of you that have younger siblings, when you have to leave them behind and go on and do something else, it's an empty feeling. And Dom stepped in, and this is a pun, he took Kevin under his wing. And Dom, I will forever thank you for that. You did a tremendous job. Kevin went on to become a state champ, was an academic All-American. But Dom, how the heck did you allow him to pick West Point over Naval? I mean, come on.
Rebellion.
But it's not. I mean, wrestling's just an amazing sport, and I missed some things. But Dom, you and Kevin became so close when I left there, and you just filled in, and I can't thank you enough for that. I really can't. The last thing I want to cover is extremely important here as Dom prepares to get up here, but on September 11th, 2001, our country was attacked by cowardly terrorists. And get that video ready here in a second, Kenny, but in the weeks following the terrorist attacks, just put that on pause for a sec, because you're going to have to put it on the one that's the speech that he has here. You know, we had American flags flying all over, patriotism was extremely high, but the country was wounded, and we were cautious. Everybody was on edge, and we were in bad need of an uplifting event when you think back to that period of time. We needed to know that we were citizens of the greatest country on earth, and that we could pick ourselves up off the mat, to do a wrestling analogy, and get ready for the next match. Well, less than 3 months after 9/11, our country was looking for that moment to uplift us. And the Space Shuttle Endeavour was standing on a launch pad very proudly at the Kennedy Space Center. And the mission commander of that space shuttle that day was the head honcho in charge, the mission commander, not just the pilot, but the guy in charge was none other than former wrestler Dom Gorie. And a few moments before the final countdown of that launch, Dom was going through the checks with Mission Control, and there's been many, many famous astronaut sayings and quotes throughout the years. We've all heard them, you know, Godspeed, John Glenn, Godspeed. Houston, we've got a problem. I think that was Tom Hanks that said that one. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, obviously Neil Armstrong. But let me add one more quote to that very impressive list. And that was, as the final countdown, shortly after 9/11 was looming, Commander Gorie, former wrestler, was calm, and he understood the atmosphere was very, very tense. So the former wrestler, who was used to tough situations, proudly and confidently told Launch Control, "We're all well aware that for over 200 years, and certainly over the past 2 months, freedom has rung loud and clear across this country. But right here, right now, it's time to let freedom roar. Let's light them up." So if you can play that one that that's the Let Freedom Roar one. And then we're going to play a video of the actual launch right after that. Crank it up as high as you can.